For decades, historians imposed a giant, invisible wall across ancient Africa, claiming the magnificent pyramid builders of Meroe and the wealthy coastal traders of the Horn were completely separate worlds. But recent archaeological breakthroughs are finally tearing up that traditional map, revealing a massive, seamless interaction sphere where people, technology, and revolutionary ideas flowed freely across these borders. We have found the smoking gun of this lost connection, distinctive handmade Nubian pottery buried deep within Somali tombs, proving these ancient communities actually lived and traded together. From the mysterious iron paradox that challenges the entire timeline of African technology to the striking parallels between the fierce queens of Kush and the legendary Queen Araweelo, the evidence is undeniable. This evidence proves that the ancestors of the Nubians and Somalis were not isolated strangers, but active partners in a shared genetic and cultural revolution that shaped the ancient world. The Meroitic influence was never an invasion, but a natural exchange between deeply related groups. Do you think the iron technology found in Somalia was an independent invention or shared knowledge from Meroe? Let us know your theory in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into lost African history. We are going to basically tear up the traditional map of ancient Africa today. If you've ever looked at the history of the continent, you see this giant invisible wall. On one side, you have the magnificent Nile Valley civilizations, Egypt, and of course, the Kingdom of Kush, or Meroe.
Right, with its famous pyramids.
Exactly. And then on the other side, hundreds of miles away, you've got the coastal trading cultures of the Horn of Africa, the heirs to the land of Punt. Two completely separate worlds, right?
Well, that separation is really a convenient myth. It's something modern history has kind of imposed.
Okay.
But when you actually delve into the sources we've gathered, the archaeology, the deep linguistics, the ethnohistory, a totally different picture emerges.
Which is?
This wasn't two isolated places. It was one seamless, dynamic system. We're looking at what historians now call the Northeast African interaction sphere.
That reframing, just that term, instantly tells you the mission here. We're not just tracing, a few trade routes.
No, not at all.
We're talking about a zone where fundamental ideas, how to build a state, how to organize your religion, how to smelt iron, even how to bury your dead, were all flowing freely across these so-called borders.
Exactly. And to help you visualize this sphere, let's start with our two anchors. Up in the north, you have Meroe in its full glory from roughly 300 BCE to 350 CE.
And this was a sophisticated, highly urbanized power.
Absolutely. We know it as the Birmingham of Africa for its massive iron industry. It's marked by those unique steep-sided pyramids and its own script that still fascinates us.
And then, way down south, you have the Horn, modern Eritrea and the Somali coast, acting as this critical link between Africa and the entire Indian Ocean trade network.
Right. These Proto-Somali cultures controlled key ports. Places like Mundus, which is modern Hiis, and Apone, which we now know as Ras Hafun.
And if you read something like the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, basically a first-century merchant's guide, these were not backwater towns.
No, they were international shipping magnets.
So, Meroe has the industrial might and controls the Nile's wealth, and the Horn has the aromatics, frankincense, myrrh, and this crucial maritime gateway.
It wasn't just a casual exchange between neighbors. It was a deep, systemic necessity for both sides.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to prove that Meroe and the ancient ancestors of the Somalis were, inextricably linked. Our deep dive is going to focus on three key areas of evidence. First, the physical proof, the stuff they left behind. Second, the whole technological puzzle of the Iron Age. And finally, this amazing cultural reservoir that connects the great Candace to Queen Araweelo. So if you're trying to prove historical contact, you need a smoking gun. You need physical artifacts from one civilization found deep inside the territory of the other.
And we find that gun loaded and aimed right on the Somali coast.
How so?
Well, think about Meroe's geopolitical situation. They're on the Nile, but the Romans control Egypt. And that means the Romans control the Red Sea ports Meroe desperately needs.
And they're slapping heavy taxes on everything that moves through there.
Of course, so Meroe had this powerful motivation to find another way out, a route that bypassed the Romans to get to the Red Sea directly.
An alternate route.
Absolutely. And this drove the creation of trade pathways like the Berenike Road through the eastern desert, linking Meroe's sphere southwards. It set up this critical triangular trade, Nile to Red Sea to the Horn of Africa.
Which brings us to the Hiis Necropolis in Somaliland. We're talking about excavations from the 1970s, Neville Chittick's work.
Yes.
And he uncovered hundreds of these tumuli, these stone cairns, dating right to the peak of the Meroitic era, the 1st to 5th century CE.
And Hiis, or Ancient Mundus, was a known cosmopolitan port. So finding imported Roman glass there, that's not a surprise. That's just standard international cargo.
Right.
But what made the archaeologists really sit up and pay attention was a specific kind of ceramic fragment they found, mixed in with the burials. It was Nubian ware.
Okay, so what's the big deal about some broken pottery? Isn't all pottery just evidence of trade?
But this is where the distinction is so crucial. When you find Roman amphorae, those big wheel-made vessels, that's just packaging.
Industrial packaging.
Exactly, for wine, oil, grain. It's the ancient world's shipping container. But the Nubian ware at Hiis is different. It's typically handmade. It's often decorated with these very distinctive basketry impressions or geometric scratches.
So it's not cargo, it's cultural.
That's the key. It's cultural pottery. Think of it less like an imported shipping pallet and more like someone bringing their grandmother's serving dish on a very long journey.
Oh, wow.
The presence of this specific, non-industrial ceramics strongly suggests the movement of actual Meroitic or Nubia people, merchants, traders, maybe even settlers, who carried their cultural identity with them deep onto the Somali coast.
It's proof of a community, not just a commodity exchange.
Precisely. And this Nilotic echo wasn't isolated. If you go further south to Apone, Ras Hafun, another one of these cosmopolitan hubs, they found what looked like Egyptian fine red slipwares.
Right.
And even more compelling, the way people were buried there, crouched inside these stone tumuli. It looked strikingly similar to the older mortuary traditions of the Middle Nile.
You mean those pre-Meroitic Nubian cultures, like Sea Group and Pangrave?
Yes, exactly. It connects the dots across millennia. The physical evidence, the burials, and that intimate cultural pottery, it confirms the interaction sphere wasn't just a theory. Meroe was actively engaged. So if the artifacts were the smoking gun, then the technology is, well, it's the stick of dynamite. Let's talk about iron.
Right, because Meroe has always had this reputation.
The Birmingham of Africa.
Exactly. The standard story is that Meroe was the massive center, the source, and the technology then diffused slowly southward and eastward across the continent.
And this is where the archaeological reports we looked at just throw a massive wrench into that neat timeline.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
We have these startling finds from the Gogoshiis Qabe rock shelter in the Qabe region of southern Somalia. Excavations there have turned up iron artifacts and slag that were radiocarbon dated.
So, what's the timeline we're talking about for this Somali iron production?
The dates are incredibly old. I mean, we're talking as early as the 9th or even 8th century BCE.
Whoa! That's truly disruptive.
It is.
Because Meroe's major industrial iron phase is usually dated to around the 6th century BCE or even later.
Right.
So this means iron working in southern Somalia was happening at the same time as, or maybe even before, the great Meroitic industrial boom was supposed to have started.
It completely dismantles that simple idea of one-way diffusion. That Meroe was the sole source gifting iron to its neighbors. For you, the listener, trying to piece this paradox together, there are really two powerful scenarios that emerge from this.
So, if Meroe wasn't the single source, what does Qabe force us to consider?
Well, the first scenario is just independent innovation. The Horn was already connected by sea trade, so maybe they just developed metallurgy on their own. Perhaps through contact with South Arabia or other Indian Ocean partners. The tech just popped up there locally.
And the second possibility? The one that fits our interaction sphere model a little better?
The second is that Meroe and the Horn were part of a rapid, shared technological zone. It suggests a dynamic Northeast African Iron Age revolution where knowledge was moving so fast and so seamlessly.
Through those same trade routes that carried the pottery.
Exactly. It wasn't a slow trickle from north to south. It was more of a shared, decentralized transition where multiple centers developed at the same time.
Still, it's interesting. We should note that even if the technology was concurrent, the Somali word for iron, beer, might still owe a debt to Meroe.
That's a great point. The language of commerce often follows the economy of scale, and Meroe was definitely the industrial powerhouse.
Okay, so beyond the goods and the tech secrets, the deepest connections are often preserved in culture, in belief, and in the shared memory of power.
And this brings us to the Queens of Kush. But first, a quick linguistic clarification is really important here. Kushite, the language of the Meroitic Empire, is likely Nilo-Saharan. Cushitic, the language family of Somali, is Afro-Asiatic. They are distant cousins.
So that linguistic barrier means that any shared concepts or words are incredibly strong indicators of contact, not just some ancient shared ancestry.
Extremely strong indicators, so let's focus on power. Meroe gave us the Candaces.
The queen mothers. And these weren't just symbolic figures.
No, they were fierce reigning monarchs,
Mm-hmm.
like Amon-Arenas, who famously led armies against the Roman Empire.
That institutionalized female political power is the key thing to remember.
It is. Now look south to the Somali legend of Queen Araweelo. She's a semi-mythical figure, sure, but her story just resonates with this powerful matriarchal tradition. She's described as a ruler who actively reversed gender roles and enforced female dominance.
She ruled with an iron fist, according to the legend.
She did. And the ethnohistorians we looked at propose that the Arawelo legend might be a powerful folk memory of the Kushite queenships.
So, it's a way that the memory of these incredible female leaders was passed down through the generations, but in the South.
Exactly. But what's really fascinating is how the story is told. The historical Candaces were powerful, they were commanding, but Araweelo is often characterized with these extreme, even brutal acts like castrating male prisoners to maintain her rule.
And your analysis suggests this cruelty could actually be a later form of, what did you call it?
Patriarchal revisionism.
A way to discredit historical female power.
Precisely. If you want to discourage female leadership in a later, male-dominated society, you don't erase the memory of the powerful queen. You reframe her as a cruel tyrant. It's a way to delegitimize that entire historical era, even as the memory of that powerful Candace archetype lives on.
That's an incredible thread connecting the Nile to the Horn, and we see this shared cultural reservoir in religious symbols too, right? Specifically, the lion.
Yes, Meroe's state deity was Apetamak, a lion-headed warrior god, often shown standing triumphant over his enemies.
And in Somali culture, the lion, Libya or Ar, is still the ultimate symbol of bravery, of strength, of chieftainship. It's invoked constantly in traditional poetry, the Qabe.
This very specific imagery, the male leonine warrior ethos, it suggests a common regional belief system rooted in the savannah. While the Egyptians had the lioness goddess Sekhmet, Meroe really popularized the male lion god of kingship and war.
So, this shared symbolic vocabulary, where the lion represents divine kingly power, shows how deeply connected the cultural imaginations of these two regions really were. And this interaction, it didn't just happen at the level of kings and queens and gods. It runs deep into the fabric of daily life, what historians call the longue durée.
Absolutely. Just look at something as humble as a headrest. The traditional Somali wooden headrest, the borkoto or barkin.
Which people use to keep cool and preserve their hairstyles.
That's the one. It is practically identical in its design to headrests that have been discovered in Meroitic and even ancient Egyptian tombs.
That's a shared aesthetic, a shared solution that crosses huge distances. It's a design choice that unites Meroitic royalty with the pastoralist traditions of the Horn.
And then we come back to the mortuary landscape. The Somali countryside is just dotted with thousands upon thousands of stone cairns called tayalo.
These aren't just random piles of rocks.
No, they mark significant burials. And the ones found at Hiis and Rashafun, they are strikingly similar to the ring tumuli found in the Nubian periphery, from the C group all the way through the Bologna periods.
So, this shared architecture for burials, it speaks to a common belief system about ancestors and social status.
A deep regional way of signaling social importance that was there before Meroe and continued right through its reign.
And then finally, modern science gives us the closing argument for all this continuity.
It really does.
Yeah.
Genetic studies, like the analysis of the ancient Moda individual from Ethiopia, show that ancient Nubians and the ancestors of modern Somalis share a deep, foundational East African genetic component.
Meaning they were related from the very beginning.
Fundamentally related and interconnected. This demographic continuity created the perfect substrate for the easy systemic movement of people, genes, ideas, and technologies like iron across the entire region. The Meroitic influence was never an imposition. It was a natural exchange between related groups. So what does this all mean? The main conclusion here is that you simply cannot segment Northeast Africa's history. Meroe's influence wasn't an invasion or a conquest. It was participation.
Participation in that sustained, systemic Northeast African interaction sphere.
Exactly.
The evidence from that specific handmade Nubian pottery found at Hiis to the startlingly early Iron Age dates at Bur Habi, and that deep cultural memory linking the Candaces to Queen Araweelo, it completely disproves this idea that the ancient Somali ancestors were somehow isolated or peripheral.
They were active partners, technological partners, cultural partners in a network that stretched from the smoke of the iron furnaces under Meroe's pyramids all the way to the aromatic frankincense groves of Puntland.
So, you can leave this deep dive with 3 core ideas. First, there is direct physical evidence that non-industrial pottery-proving Meroitic era people were physically present on the Somali coast. Second, the iron paradox suggests Meroe was part of a shared technological revolution, not simply the isolated source of iron for the rest of the continent.
And third, that deep cultural memory, especially the shared matriarchal archetype and the unifying lion symbolism, shows this profound underlying unity in their worldviews that lasted for millennia.
But the central historical ambiguity is still there. Was the Somali iron at Bur Habi developed totally independently, or did the technology just jump instantly from Meroe through those trade networks?
The mechanism of transfer is still ambiguous.
So, what's the next step?
Well, that is the future deep dive just waiting to happen. The next logical step, based on what we've learned, is chemical sourcing.
Of the iron itself?
Of the iron slag found at Bur Habi, could metallurgical analysis determine if the ore sources or the smelting techniques share a traceable chemical signature with Meroitic industries? If they match, the rapid diffusion link is proven. If they're fundamentally different, the independent innovation theory gets a major boost. That chemical fingerprint is the key to finally settling the